Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Mystical Winter Fairy, and I'm going to be sipping on some vanilla caramel chai tea. That's a mouthful. I'm surprised I got it on the first shot. If you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, Mars black, burnt sienna, which I will call rust, burnt umber, which I will call brown, and cobalt blue. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like to, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, I have a number 4 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 1 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting the sky. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, blue, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 light shades for the sky. I'm going to make a light blue and a light gray color that we can use as the base for our sky. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to first make myself a gray. So this is the color I'm going for, and how I got to that was I used a little bit of white and just a dot of black. You don't need much black at all. This is going to give you a light to medium type of gray color. You can certainly make it a little bit lighter or darker than mine. This is just something that I'm going to be using in this mid-tone, so when it dries, it will give me a nice soft color to my sky. Then what I'm doing, I think that's going to be plenty for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe my brush off on the side of my palette. I'm going to use that dirty brush to help me make my blue for the sky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use my small brush. I'm going to separate out a little bit of my blue. I want to use some of this blue on my fairy later, so I'm going to just separate a little bit of that out. And then I use my dirty brush with the gray on it, and I start spinning it in my blue. I'm going to add a little bit of brown to this as well. So what I'm in essence doing is I'm kind of desaturating my blue with the gray color that's on my brush, and I'll also use the brown to kind of neutralize it a little bit. So you can really get your blue to be as soft as you want. I just like to take sometimes that vibrancy out of the blue. So by adding the gray and maybe a little bit of brown, that will take that real vibrant tone that the cobalt blue has, but it'll give us a nice cool winter blue. And so what I've done here, this is about the shade I'm going to. Once I've got that all taken care of, I don't need to wash my brush. I'm going to utilize my dirty brush. I'm going to make myself a couple of markers on the left and the right. So I'm going to bring my sky about 2/3 of the way down my canvas. So how I can figure out where that, or maybe almost 3/4 of the way down. If this is about halfway down my canvas, I'm almost about halfway between that and the bottom of my canvas. So somewhere about here. Then what you can do is use your brush as a measuring tool and come over on the other side and give yourself a mark about the same height. That's about as far down as you want your sky to go. Then what I'm going to do with that blue on my brush is I'm going to start applying it to the top of my canvas. So I'm going in a left to right brush stroke. You could certainly use a circular brush stroke or a crisscross. Whatever's comfortable for you is totally fine. We are going to be putting stars and trees and a big light source in there, so whatever works for you is totally fine. I'm going to pick up some more of my blue as I come down my sky. I am going to start picking up my gray in a minute, so just bringing this sky down about a quarter of the way down, or the blue about a quarter of the way down my canvas. Now, without washing my brush, I'm going to start picking up my gray color. So I have, oops, that's a little clumpy thing in there. So I have my gray color plus my blue on my brush, and I'm going to get these two to blend in with one another. So I'm going to keep just picking up my gray and getting it to blend up into that blue a little bit, so these look like they just are merging into each other, and I keep kind of just going back and forth, crisscrossing them until they look like they are blending nice and well for me. And then I just keep picking up my gray paint as I'm coming down my sky. I will in a minute start picking up white also, so my sky gets lighter as it comes down towards that horizon, but I don't really want it to go all the way white on me, so I am not going to be letting it get all the way white. I will still be using my dirty brush. I will still be blending these colors in, and then as I come down towards that horizon, like right about now, I'm going to start picking up white with my dirty brush. So this way what will happen is it will gradually get lighter as it comes down towards that horizon, but it won't go all the way white because you're utilizing a dirty brush, and all that gray and the blue are still living within your bristles, so you get to kind of blend them all in with each other. And now I'm just still picking up just white as I go right down towards my markers. That's about as far down as I want to go. And then once you've got it all the way down to your markers, just bring it all the way across. It doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line, just something that comes down about that far. Make sure it's all painted in. We will be utilizing the same brush for the next step, so if you want to do a second coat, you can certainly do that. Or if you feel like you're ready, you can just wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our water. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are white, brown, and black. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start at the top of my water with white, and I'm going to work my way down towards the bottom and get it a little bit darker down at the bottom. We'll be putting our little reflections and all other shadows and stuff like that. We'll be putting that in later. We're just going for a base coat for our water right now. So I'm going to start with white paint, and this doesn't even have to be a perfectly straight line because we're also going to have land within the landscape as well. So I'm just going to kind of go across like this, and I know that I'm going to have more of this water line exposed on this right hand side, a little bit past my halfway mark, so I'll concentrate a little bit harder at getting this area a little bit straighter, but once I cross over that halfway mark and come to the left, I'm really not concerned about this side being straight, and even this right side. If it's not perfectly straight, you'll be able to disguise it with some great trees and stuff. So once I've got that done, I do know that this top right hand side is going to be the brightest because I'm going to have my light source up top there. So I'm just going to make sure that I have it stay nice and bright in through there. And if I make my line crooked, just reshape it in through there. There we go. And now I'm going to start picking up a touch of black with white. So I have black with white on my brush, and this is going to get a gray going. You could, I suppose, use the gray that you used in your sky, but I wanted this to blend as I go, so that way I have different tones and have some lighter spots and some darker spots. And without washing my brush, as I'm working my way down towards the bottom, I picked up black and brown. So I, in essence, have black, brown, and white on my dirty brush. And because I didn't pick up much more white as I'm working my way down towards the bottom of the canvas, this is going to allow the white to kind of work its way off of my brush and into the combination of colors, so it doesn't go all the way black on me or all the way brown. I'm again using that dirty brush, but if you find that it goes too dark on you, just pick up a little bit of white on your brush with the black and the brown, and this will give you a nice variation in those tones as it's getting down towards the deeper part of the water, or the part that's closest to the viewer, which is the bottom of the canvas. And I'm just going to kind of make sure that I've got a good blend in through here, but again, it's water, so it doesn't have to be really smooth. This water might be nice and soft and tranquil and not have much movement in it, but if yours ends up with lots of ripples, that just means that there's a lot of movement in your water. And then we're going to be utilizing this large brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry the large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our moon. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush, and I'm going to be using white paint. I do recommend, though, that before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. It'll be a little bit easier of a process to do it that way. So this is that time where you get to take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So I'm going to have my moon behind some trees. So I'm going to have that happening over on the right hand side of my canvas. I'm going to dip my brush a little bit in white paint. I hardly have any paint on my brush. I want to be able to control how quickly this dries and where it moves and all that good stuff. So I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. I'm going to have the center of my moon somewhere in this direction. So if this is about halfway left to right in your canvas, I'm maybe 2 or 3 inches over from there, and I'm maybe about 3 inches from the top of my canvas. And I'm going to start with a circular type of motion, and I just let my hand kind of spin it around in a natural type of circle. You might find that your natural circle is not so circular, and if that's the case, you can just kind of keep manipulating those edges. I'm using a nice firm bristle brush that allows me to kind of get those edges to get soft along the outside of them and dissipate into the sky. If you're using a softer brush, you could use a little bit of liquid medium or something to help along the process. So I just reloaded my brush. I want this to be a little bit bigger, and I want that beam of light to come down towards the water area. So I added a little bit more white to my brush just so I can get this to go splay out a little bit further. You could also utilize a little bit of water on your brush if you wanted to, or a little bit more paint, like I'm just putting more paint on my brush. And I'm going to get it to come down in this direction in through here. So I'm just kind of utilizing a scrubbing type of technique to push my paint along. Again, I'm not using a lot of paint, so I can control where it goes. But if you were using a different type of paint, maybe a thicker kind of paint, you might feel that you want to use a different type of method to get it to go lighter or get it to go farther and farther. I just keep adding a little bit of white paint to my brush because I really want this to look like it's got some distance in the trail of the beams of light. So I just keep putting just a little bit more on my brush as I'm bringing this down in through here. And again, it's going to be behind a tree or a couple of trees, so don't worry about these edges being perfect. You can always strategically hide them behind branches and things of that nature. I just really am going for something that is going to allow the viewer to understand that this light source really has some good power and it's really kind of going out pretty far. And then once I've got it in the area that I want, I'm going to keep illuminating the center of it. So mine is pretty darn dry right now because I didn't use a lot of paint, so I just added a bit more white to my brush. And this will allow me to just get this center area to be a little bit brighter. And you can certainly pull it out as far as you want and just kind of keep manipulating it until it gets the size that you want. And then we are going to be utilizing our medium paintbrush for the next step. So once you've got this as large as you want to, bring it as far down as you want to. If you felt you wanted to get more lightness at the bottom of the sky, feel free to do so. And then you can put this large brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting the base coat for our 2 pieces of land and our 3 trees that we're going to be doing. Well, it'll be the base coat for the branches and the trunks of the trees and the land. So I'm using my medium brush. The colors I'm going to be using are black and brown. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to load my brush with some black and brown, and I'm going to give you some markers for these 2 pieces of land, and then we'll do some nice organic type of land masses. So on the right hand side, I'm going to have like a piece of an island where there's 2 trees landing. I'm going to have the top part of it is going to be right about where the water meets the sky, and then I'm going to come about halfway between there and the bottom of my canvas, make myself a little bit of a marker. Then I'm going to find kind of the center point of my canvas left to right, and I'm going to come down about 2 to 2.5 inches, or about halfway between these 2. So if you just kind of travel over in through this vicinity, somewhere in this area will give you that marker. Keep reloading my brush with a little bit of black and brown, and I'm going to give myself a profile for this piece of land. So you can start at either edge. I'm just going to kind of bring this down in like a nice ripply type of way. You can have a lot of paint on your brush. You can have a little paint on your brush. I'm really just going to have it kind of like a sliver of a piece of land over here on the left, and then on the right it'll be a little bit more with more information and a little bit wider. And then once I've got that profile in there, and you can see it's not a anything with a lot of detail, I'm just going to color it in with my brown and my black. And I like using multiple colors like this on my brush at the same time because it provides me with a nice, easy, and natural way to get different tones within the paint as you're creating especially natural objects like this or natural pieces like this. And we're going to be putting lots of detail on them later, but this will just kind of get the party started. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here for another piece of land. So I'm going to come up from this corner and just shy of the edge of my water, give myself another marker. On this left hand side, I'm going to come up, I would say about 1 inch higher than my water line, give myself a marker in through here. And then I'm going to come down about 1 inch below my water line and put a marker in through here. This is going to be the land area where I'm going to have my fairy kind of displaying her powers. So I'm going to have a little bit of a platform higher than here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to travel over in through here, maybe a couple of inches, and then just kind of come up about 1 inch or so, and I'm going to give myself a kind of a rock type of platform that's going to come. If this is the farthest part out, I would say I'm maybe about 3 inches behind that and up, and this will give me a good place to put the top part and the edge of this rock formation somewhere in through here. And then I'm just going to kind of give myself this real natural looking edge to this piece of land in through here, and then I'll connect this to here with another nice organic type of edge to a land. Maybe it kind of juts out in through here and kind of just rides along in through here. And then once you've got that shape, you're just going to color it in with a whole bunch of black and brown. You don't need anything fancy. Again, this is just going to act as the base coat so we can have something to work from when we put our details on here. So I'm just kind of wiggling my brush left and right. You could do circles. You can really put this on whatever way you want. The messier this is, the more detailed information it will provide later because it's the ground, and we're gonna have sticks and brush and like foliage kind of stuff. So it'll be a whole bunch of different type of textures anyway. So have fun when it comes to applying that paint. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some trees. So I'm going to have one over here on the left hand side. I'm going to have a little bit of a trunk coming up in through this vicinity. This tree is only going to go up, I would say, about this tall. So I am just going to give myself a trunk in through here and give myself some light kind of sketcherly type of branches that are coming off of it. So again, I'm using my black and brown to create these branches, but you could certainly use just black or just brown if you wanted to, and you could also utilize your smaller brush if you want to. I like to utilize these medium-sized brushes because I like the varying thicknesses of the branches as they're coming off, but that's going to be a preference on your part. So that's pretty good for me on this one. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make the other two that I'm going to have in through here. So I want my light source to kind of be in the middle of these two trees. So if I kind of split the difference, maybe an inch or two to the left and right, and then just kind of come down into the land, that'll give me a good kind of starting point for them. So somewhere in this direction will give me my starting points. And these are going to be a little bit taller, and they're going to have a little bit more structure to them. I like my trees to be a little bit wider at the base, and then as they go up into the branches, they will get more narrow as they go along. And I am continuing to just pick up brown and black. Sometimes I have more brown on my brush, sometimes I have more black on my brush. So again, that's how I'm going to get some nice natural tones within my tree. And I like to do my my more solid branches kind of coming out of the gate, and then I will do the more narrow ones after I get to the main kind of structure in place. So you could certainly, you know, build yours whatever way that you wanted to, but this is the way that it kind of makes it easiest for me and kind of keeps my brush in control, because once I've got the main branches on there, it makes my building process a little bit easier. I just kind of can almost just let my brush have fun once I've got my main branches on, and just kind of follow suit as to where I have them. You can have some branches kind of curving over and just kind of dropping down. This can be whatever type of tree that you want to imagine it to be. These two trees can look similar to this one over here on the left, or you can build them whatever way that you want. I'm doing a little bit lighter pressure in the center where it's nearing the light source. In my head, I feel that light source would kind of overpower some of the branches and make them look a little bit more light and sketcherly. So you could do the same thing if you wanted to. And some of these branches I'm getting to come almost out as far as this little ledge. So I'm not having mine much farther than that, but you could certainly move yours wherever you want to. And then again, just as many branches as you want, have fun with it. I don't press hard when it comes to these branches, so that way I've got nice pointy tips to them. I'm going to go ahead and start this one over in through here. So I'm trying to get it to be on the straighter side. Oh, it doesn't have to be too straight, but we don't want it to look like it's falling over. So let me just give that one a little bit of width in through there. There we go. And then this one I'm going to have coming somewhere, I would say, up in through here. And the center part can certainly be on the straighter side, but I think you want to stay away from making it look like a telephone pole. So the more kind of wiggle and bend that you put in the trees, the more natural that they can end up looking in the long run. So that definitely makes mine, I feel, look a little bit more natural. I do like to have my branches kind of crossing over one another. I guess I'm going to put a little tree in through here too. I do like to have a lot of my branches kind of crossing over one another, and maybe you can have some that look like they're broken, or they've got a little bit more structure to them, or they're bent in an odd way. Again, all those little kind of nuances really help to make it look a little bit more natural. We don't always need to strive for photorealism, but if we do want to have something that has those realistic qualities to it, just getting, trying to incorporate realistic aspects will help to sell that story. And then you can keep fiddling with yours as much as you want to, get as many little details in here as you want. And then we are going to be utilizing we're going to utilize our large brush. Let's use our large brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your medium brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish these little land sections. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, gray, white, or maybe gray, white, and my sky blue that we have. So what I'm really just looking to do is add some foliage and maybe a little information to the rocks and the land. So I will be using very little bit of paint on my brush to create little pieces of grass coming up. I'll put a little, information of maybe a little highlight or something on this ledge that she's sitting on. And then the rest is just going to be little pieces of grass and snowy land, and you'll see how it goes. It's going to be a fun step. So very tiny bit of black and brown on my brush at the same time, like very little. I only need a tiny bit on the tip of my brush. You could always use your medium brush for this too. And I'm just going to kind of bring up a couple of little pieces of grass every now and again, something like this. Just give myself a little bit of a ruffled edge along the edge. You can always reload your brush whenever you feel necessary. I don't need to do it everywhere, just a little bit here and there is what's going to sell the story of this looking nice and natural. Over on this one over here, maybe I have these little pieces popping up. And the beautiful part about using a kind of chaotic brush like this is the unpredictability of it. And that's what's going to make it look the most natural. So if it does something and you're like, oh my God, why did it just do that? I didn't want it to do that. Just roll with it. That's what Mother Nature does. Mother Nature just throws us these beautiful wild pieces every now and again. So that's what I'm trying to incorporate here. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of gray paint now without washing my brush. I'm going to incorporate a little bit of maybe an edge to this rock that I feel that my beautiful fairy is going to be kind of walking or standing on, so something like that. Maybe a little bit more black and brown to just fill in some of these gaps if you feel like you've got any areas that need to be finished being rendered. And then let's see, I've got my gray on my brush, maybe a little couple pieces of grass in through here. I'm just letting my brush have fun right now. I've got a little bit of gray, brown, and black on it right now. Now, without washing my brush, I'm going to pick up some of my sky blue. So again, just a teeny tiny bit. You hardly need any on your brush. And maybe I'm going to put some down at the bottom of this piece of land. This will maybe make it look like this is the area that's down near the water. And we'll just give this some, maybe this is some shadowy or some snowy stuff that's in the shadows. Maybe we'll put a little bit in through here. I'll bring some down in through here. And if you do different brush strokes, like you can do some horizontal brush strokes versus some vertical brush strokes, that will tell the story of different kind of foliage. So if it's vertical in through here, that's going to make it look like it's kind of like a flat piece of land. And if you do it vertical, I think I said if you do it horizontal like this, left to right, that'll make it look like flat land. And if you pull it up, that's going to make it look like little grassy pieces. So you can really play with the viewer's attention and give them different kind of information by just giving these different little brush strokes to tell a story. And now I'm going to pick up a little bit of white on my dirty brush. So just a little bit of white. Maybe I'll give a couple little. That was a little bit too much. We'll dull that down in a minute. But these couple little brighter pieces, maybe along the edge and through here. Again, just having some fun with giving some different information along my waterways edge. You can put as much as you want. Maybe pick up a little bit of brown and black now and just keep building it until you feel that you've got all of the information that you want, and you can add more, you can take away, whatever works for you. And then once you feel like you've got as much as you want, we are going to be utilizing our we're going to use our small brush for the next step. So you can keep fiddling with this as much as you want, and then put your big brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our fairy. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are cobalt blue, not the sky blue, but the brighter blue, gray, black, white, and brown, and burnt sienna. So all of the colors on my palette. So how I'm going to do this, I'm going to first just kind of draw an outline for the body and the wings, and then we'll add the little details on after that. So I'm going to load my brush with cobalt blue, and I'm going to give you a couple of markers, and we'll just make our our fantasy lady in the middle of the forest. So I'm going to have mine standing on this platform in through here. Her body is going to come up, I would say about 3 inches above, up to her shoulder, I would say is right about in, I would say right about in this vicinity. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw myself kind of a long triangle, but I want it to have a little bit of shape to it. So that's going to be the tippy top of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of come down in through this direction and just kind of give myself a little bit of a ripple coming down in through there. And then I'll do a similar kind of task over on this right hand side if I can keep my hand out of your way. So something like this. This is just going to be the front of the skirt. I'm going to bring it a little bit into the rock, but I know that the blue paint, you may not be able to see it too well on top of that dark rock. So I'm going to utilize a little bit of gray with my blue as I go into the rock so you can see it a little bit better. And I'm just going to kind of bring this over in this direction. And then what I want my dress to kind of look like it is laying down on the rock and then maybe cascading over the rock a little bit. So I'm going to utilize my cobalt blue and a little bit of gray in order to get my skirt to look like it is kind of cascading down the back of that rock in through there. And then we'll put another layer on it in a minute, but this is just going to put that base coat on for us. Then I'm going to put my wings on. I'm just going to be using blue to get them in place. I'm going to have 2 bottom ones and 2 top ones, but I'm going to do the one that's on the side closest to us first. So I'm just going to start up at this triangle, the top of the triangle, and just give myself a really carefree type of shape that's going to represent the wing. So something like that. I'm going to do a little piece behind that one, just like that. That's going to give me a second one. You can even leave a tiny little space in between so you can see the difference between the two. I'm going to do 2 tall ones that are going to come about up in through here and just kind of make their way back to that center point, something like that. And then I'm just coloring them in with a light layer of my cobalt blue just to kind of get this on here. I'm going to do another one that's we're just going to see the little edge of it over behind this one, and it's going to have a similar kind of profile as that one does. And then again, just kind of painting it in, but leaving a little bit of a little line between them so I can tell the difference. And then with this blue, I'm going to give her a little bit of an arm. All I really need to see is her elbow. So from here, we'll call that the shoulder. I'm just going to bring it out just a little bit so I can see her elbow. And then I only need to bring this arm up to where her wrist would be, because we'll have a little bit, her hand will be coming out of the wrist area. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put her face and her hair and her hands on. So the face, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my burnt sienna plus a little bit of white and make myself just a light kind of skin color or a dark color skin, whatever color skin that you would like. This is pretty representational to what my skin looks like, so it's a nice easy mix or an easy reference for me to use is my own skin tone to use as a barometer for what I want to do here. And then once I've got that, I'm going to put a little shape at the top of her shoulder or the bottom of her top wing, just a little kind of bump out of sorts. This is just going to be the edge of her face. I'm also going to put her hands on here, and really I just need the little essence of her hands, just as if she's cupping them like this, so almost like 2 little marks coming out in through there. Again, you don't need much at all. Then I'm going to just wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown and white to put her hair on. So I'm going to have her having a little bit of like a bun of sorts. So I can just kind of create a little bun. I think I need a little bit more brown paint. So a little bun, and then she's got the top of her hair or her head in through here, so that can overlap on top of your face a little bit. And this is one of those things that it's such a tiny little detail here that you may want to do more than I'm doing or less than I'm doing. It's going to be completely up to you. I'm just giving the little essence of the side of the face, but if you want to go more detailed than me, feel free to do so. While I have this brown on my brush, I'm going to put a little bit of it on the far side of the arm and maybe inside one of these hands. So it looks like we've got a little shadow inside one of the hands. So something like that. And if you want it around the neck, go ahead and do so. I'm going to put a tiny bit of black paint on my brush just to give her a little tiny eye in through here, maybe with a little eyelash, and then maybe a little brown for her lips, or you could do a little bit of the burnt sienna, and then maybe a little bit of the white to give me a little bit of a highlight for her nose. And again, you don't have to go as far as I'm going with this. I'm just kind of giving a little bit of information on the face, but you could really, you could just make it a little tiny silhouette if you wanted to. But less is more when it comes to these tiny little faces that you put on, because you don't really need a whole heck of a lot at all. And then once you've got that done, maybe a little bit more darkness over by this bun back here, just to give me a little bit more shape back there. Yeah, there we go. That gives her a cute little face. Now I just need to put a little detail in the wings, so and the dress. So I'm putting a little bit of black and blue on my brush. I want to give her a little bit of shadow underneath her arm in through here, so just bringing a little bit of my black and blue, and this is also going to give me the help me to outline the exterior of the wing. So just a little bit of the black and the blue, and now I'm just switching to blue to get this to kind of just fade down into the dress. And now I'm going cobalt blue and white is what's going to give me a little bit of shape on this dress. So cobalt blue and white. You could certainly utilize a little gray if you wanted to. I'm just really giving this nice long kind of flowing dress, maybe a little ripples down at the bottom of the dress in through here, just so we can really see the movement of it. That's going to be totally up to you how much you want that dress to move and have some shape to it. I think I got a little blue in my sky. I can correct that in a minute, but now I'm going to put a little bit more of that black and blue on my brush so I can get these wings to separate a little bit. Just going to put a little bit of the darkness in between them like this, something like this. And I'm really just using a nice sketcherly type of brush stroke, so I don't need to execute too much detail on here. Just really want it to look nice and airy. I'm going to have a little darkness in through there. Now I'm going to go for my blue and white, which will allow me to give the edges of my wings and just give it this nice, almost like a butterfly type of wing effect in through here. And again, you can make yours as light or as dark as you want. Maybe you want your wings to be white. You could certainly execute them in that type of color. It's going to be up to you. Maybe you want purple wings, maybe you want pink wings. Really feel free to make these into whatever style of fairy wings or color of fairy wings that you would like. This is a nice fantasy type of painting that we can really create our own elements to it. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do for her. I think she's looking pretty fancy. You could certainly add any extra stuff that you want. We're going to have her fairy dust coming out the front in a little bit, but if you want to do anything more to it, feel free to tweak it as much as you want. We are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step, so you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be doing reflections, fairy dust, and stars. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm going to be doing reflections of my trees, maybe a little of the land if I feel I want to, my fairy. These could be referred to as reflections and or shadows. So the light source is here, so we're going to be casting some shadows, but they could, because it's water, it could be reflections too. And then we're going to have some fairy dust coming out of her hands as she's magically blowing it, and then we'll have some stars and or snow in the sky. You can interpret that whatever way you want. So I'm going to do my reflections slash shadows in my water first. I'm going to do my trees. I'm putting black with a little bit of brown on my brush. I'm going to put these in the direction as if they were shadows. So if this is my light source, they are going to be coming in the direction of that light source. So this one is going to be coming in this direction, and I'm going to be utilizing the shape of the tree, and I'm just going to be pulling it down towards the bottom of my canvas. I know that this isn't very far from the tree, so I don't really have to do a whole heck of a lot, just giving myself this the information. If I felt that this branch up here would, let me just move my canvas so we can see it a little bit better, would be represented, I could certainly do that. This one again is going to be kind of in this direction, so I'm going to just take this one and build it in this direction. Oops, I think I want it a little bit further. There we go, something like this. And then once I've got my trees on, I have this little guy in through here, so we'll just kind of pull that out. If you feel that you want anything else to be reflected or shadowed in the water, you can certainly I just put a little bit of water on my dirty brush, and you can put little bits of information in that water along the water's edge if you want to, or you could put a little shadow underneath the land's edge. So you could certainly make this a little bit fancier, have a little bit more detail down at the bottom. If you felt that it needed to have more information, you could certainly do that, or cross over some shadows or reflections from the land above it. Feel free to do that if you'd like to. I'm going to move over to this structure over here. So I do want something, I don't really like the super clean line at the bottom of the land, so I'm going to put a little bit of ruffled either reflection or shadow right underneath it. I just have a little bit of the watered down black and brown on my brush just to kind of get some sort of information underneath that land's edge. You could put white ripples in through there. I'll put a couple of sparkles in my water in a second, but right now just working with my reflections and my shadows. I'm going to put the reflection of her. If my light source is way over there, I'm going to put this down coming in this direction. And really, I just put some blue on my brush, the cobalt blue. And whatever remnants I had with the black and the brown on my brush. And I'm just going to be incorporating this lighter area down in through here. So just that blue. I just put a touch of white on my brush as well. I'm going to give this a little bit of ripple, like we've got a little bit of ripple in the water. And really I just need to pull that color down into the water. That's really all I need to do. If you felt that you wanted to make it lighter or darker, or have some of her skin kind of represented, I just picked up some of the skin color that we created, and I can put that along the edge just to make sure that we've got, all eyes on the idea that this is in fact the same thing. You could even put the little hand coming up. I know we're going to have some stardust, so you could I just put a little bit of white paint on my brush, so we could have little reflections of what's going to be the stardust that's going to be flying out of her hand. So you could certainly have lots of fun with that. You could even put, more little white on the edge. If you had white along the edge of her dress, you could certainly do that. So wherever you feel, we've got some wings up and through there. So just a little representation of that color. I definitely need to put a little dark spot in through here for this tree. So just put a little reflection of that tree in through there. And then I want to put some reflective sparkles in my water. So I'm washing my brush so I can pick up some clean white paint. And I definitely want there to be like a line of sparkles in my water. So I'm going to just have white on my brush and then just kind of give myself some nice little sparkles throughout the water in through here. And if you felt that these little sparkles that I'm making are too much for you, you could certainly just pick up some of your original gray paint too. I have white and my gray on my brush now, so you can really have fun with the intensity of them. You pick up your black and your brown just to, if you want it to be a little bit more subtle, you can really play with the intensity of how much sparkle you want in your water from that light source. And if you want it to be very sparkly, just keep adding little twinkles. The twinkles are going to make it nice and bright, and it'll give it a lot of life throughout the painting. And then once you've got that done, we just need to do some stardust and some stars in our sky, or some fairy dust. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And so I'm going to wash and dry my brush again, if I had any other colors on there. Wash and dry my brush. I'm going to have her blowing kind of stardust to the light source. So I like to kind of plan it out with just maybe one stream of them. They're coming out, oops, anchor my canvas here. Little tiny dots coming out of her hand. Maybe they kind of come up and trail back down a little bit and then back up. Just they're on a journey to that light source. And then once I've got that path, so to speak, then I just kind of reload my brush. Just make sure I have a nice pointy brush that I'm working with, and then I just kind of keep tapping in these little itty bitty dots coming out. Maybe they're the heaviest and have the most representation right around her head as she's blowing them the most, and then maybe they start to trail off as they get farther and farther away from her. So again, this is one of those steps where use your imagination, make them as bright or as subtle as you want, make them as evident as you want, as faint as you want. It's totally up to you. And then once you've got those done, so that's looking pretty, maybe we've got a couple of little rogue ones that are trying to escape and go into a different direction. And then once I've got that done, I want to put stars and snow and stuff, or sparkly things everywhere else. So I can certainly utilize white and make a whole bunch of white marks. But if you want this stardust part to be the brightest of them all, and your moon to be nice and bright, I don't recommend using all white for the whole sparkly part. So you can use white, but you could also use some of your gray. You could also use some of your sky blue. So just any variation, or white plus those colors, will give you these variations in tones throughout that sky. So that way it doesn't take away from the magic and the power of that stardust that she's creating. So just, if you want that to be kind of the star of the sparkles in the sky, make it the brightest, make that the lightest marks that are in the sky. So right now I'm just using various tones of the gray plus white or the blue plus white. I just kind of keep picking up any combination thereof, and I'm going to definitely put something over this spot right here. That's a great place for a star. And you can, as you're traveling into the gray area, if it's too dark, add some more white to it, vice versa, add some blue to it. It's totally up to you how you want this to translate and how bright you want it to be. Put some in between where your leaves are going to go on your tree, so that way that's going to look nice and natural. And I'm really just doing polka dots. So I'm not doing anything fancy here, just polka dots in varying shades of light blue, light gray, white, and giving a good representation of all of this beautiful things that are happening within the sky. And then we're going to be utilizing our large brush for the next step. So once you've got all of your magical marks along the sky and in your water, you can take this small brush or medium brush, put it away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our trees. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm using are black, my sky blue, my sky gray, and white. And how I'm going to do this is I'm really going to be doing a very limited amount of work, and I'm going to be stippling or dotting the fullness on these trees. So in my head, I'm thinking of this as a winter type of scene. So this is representational of all the tiny little branches at the end of the bigger branches that have accumulated maybe a little bit of snow, or maybe they have some leaves on there and the leaves have accumulated some snow. So it's going to be very, very faint. So how I'm going to start this is I'm using my large bristle brush. I'm going to start with a teeny tiny bit of black paint on my brush. So little that I'm even going to kind of tap it off on my paper towel. I really just want a teeny tiny bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly just kind of give myself some information as to where I want these leaves to go. I don't need to paint the entire tree. I definitely want to have some represented in many different areas, but I'm hardly touching my canvas. I'm hardly putting any paint on. I really just want this to look airy and like it's being illuminated by that light source, and I just don't want to overdo it. So that's why I'm really just kind of consciously trying to, you know, refrain from doing too much, and just little tiny tips of my brush are providing me with the information that I need. Again, I just have black paint on my brush. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over on this side. I haven't reloaded my brush yet. I'm continue to just use a teeny tiny bit of that black paint, and it's giving me that textural look that I want, and it's giving me that airiness that I'm desiring. And I'm going to make sure I don't overdo my moon, so that can kind of still sparkle through. I'm going to come over here, put a little bit on this tree, back in through here, and this is the time if you wanted your tree to grow a little bit, let it grow. If you want it to be, you know, more soft and supple, let it do that. I'm putting some of these in the middle. Now what I'm going to do, without washing my brush, I'm going to start utilizing my sky blue and my sky gray. So again, hardly any paint on my brush, just a teeny tiny bit. I will kind of go back and forth from my blue to my gray, and probably I'll use more blue down at the bottom and more gray at the top to counterbalance the background. But again, hardly any paint on my brush, and just start to tap it in where you used it on the blue or on the black stuff, just a teeny tiny bit. I don't need much at all. I'm really just lightly just tapping it in. Now I'm picking up a little bit of that gray, wiping it off on my paper towel, putting that maybe a little bit up at the top, in through the middle of the trees a little bit, intermingling it with the black, and hardly any, again, is what I'm doing. I'm trying not to make it look too polka dotty, so I am giving it good coverage or going a far distance. Now I'm going to utilize an itty bitty bit of white paint. I have not washed my brush, so you can utilize white with your gray or white with your sky blue. Tap it off on your paper towel, and then this is where we're going to start to see the lighter pieces as if they're snow. They would make sense if they were the lightest on the side where the moon is. So if you put a little bit of lightness over on the side where the moon is, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. It puts it in the spot where it would naturally kind of be illuminated. But I don't want to take away from my stardust or from my fairy dust, so that's why I'm really, again, just concentrating on not going too far at all. So hardly any paint on my brush, just kind of tapping it in here and there. And then what I will most likely do is work on this a little bit more, and then I will step away from my canvas and look at it from a distance and see if there's anything more that I want to do on it. But right now, just really lightly tapping in a little bit of this, we'll call it this wintry snow mix of sorts. And again, any combination of your sky blue, white, and gray will get these little bit lighter areas in through here. If you're traveling in through here and you feel like you want it a little bit lighter, just put the white with a little bit of your blue on it. You'll be able to see that in front of your moon really nice and well. Just those little bits of highlights will help to sell the story that there's got some snow or something on these trees. And then I'm just going to kind of keep tapping in just a little bit more. I'm feeling like I'm almost done here. And then I'm going to put some on this little tree over in through here. So again, more so on the side where the moon is, especially since this one is farther away from the moon. So this would have more of that dramatic light show, so to speak, than that one over there, because that one's so close to the moon. And then And then I just kind of keep fiddling with it. It might turn a little bit darker as it dries, so I might find myself just kind of fiddling a little bit more and more as it dries until it gets into the intensity that I had hoped it would. And then once I feel like I'm all done, I have one little step left to go, and that's going to be with my small brush. So once you've got your trees all nice and finished, you can put this large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I think I'm going bottom left on this one with black paint. You could certainly sign yours wherever you wanted. You can use your first, I use my initials. You could certainly use your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a very mystical image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.